It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their family. Now here's your host, Ken Rollins.
Welcome to Veterans Issues. We are brought to you by the Red, White, and Blue. Thank you, Toby. Today's guest is back by popular demand. He's been away too long. Chief Bill Partridge at the Oxford Police Department. We're going to talk about a lot of things. Get you a pen. Be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here today. I got Bill Partridge to come back on here. We've been away too long, and we got a lot of things to talk about. Welcome back to the show, Bill.
Thanks, Ken, for having me.
Where you been?
Working. Where have you been?
Like the Hank Snow thing. I've been everywhere.
That's it.
One day I was talking to you up in Florence. All this last week down in Montgomery. A lot of legislation going on that affect law down there.
Absolutely. This time of year is a busy time of year.
Are they coming to you and asking you anything for it?
Absolutely not.
Do you feel like things would be better if they would ask law enforcement before
it'd be much better. We could get a lot more things.
I know there's some bills that are thrown out there that I won't say bad versus good, but there's some bills thrown out there that need to be debated by law enforcement staff. And can you, without naming the legislator, just for example, what's out there that needs to be?
We've got some stuff such as asset forfeiture, profiling, teachers with guns, those types of bills that are right now pending.
All right, let's deal with that asset forfeiture. Mm-hmm. That's when you stop someone that's got doing something illegal and drugs or whatever, can you take their vehicle?
Well, I understand where some of them are coming from and saying that maybe, for instance, we can do better with asset forfeiture. And there are some things in the current asset forfeiture bills or laws that we have in place now that really need to be tweaked and corrected. So people who have legitimate money that is seized by law enforcement can get it back without having to spend almost the same amount going through a court system. The problem with the bill that we have right now in the legislature is the way it's currently written. An individual with 40 pounds of methamphetamines can come down I-20. They can be stopped by law enforcement. They can search the vehicle and find the 40 pounds of methamphetamines. They can find $1 million in cash, and he can be driving a paid-for vehicle. The only thing under this law that we would be able to do is arrest the individual for the methamphetamines, and we would have to give him his $1 million back and his car, which we both know the $1 million is part of the drug trade and the drug trafficking from South Texas and Mexico up through the Northeast. So that's the way it's currently written. It's a bad law. It's a bad bill. And law enforcement is urging that be tweaked. Like I said, there's room for improvement on the current asset forfeiture laws in the state that could help alleviate some of the bad things that you read in the press. But 98% of law enforcement is using it the correct way. And there are checks and balances. First, law enforcement has to do it, and second, the district attorney's office and the judge will determine whether or not this is a good or a bad seizure. So there's checks and balances in our current asset forfeiture law, but there are some things that could be corrected. But the bill that's there now is bad for everybody, except the drug dealer.
What was the other one?
The other one is a profiling bill. I have nothing against the profiling bill itself, other than the fact that it mandates law enforcement to do a lot more as far as reporting, and which would basically, the way it's written, we would have to hire additional staff just to do that.
That brings me to something that we hadn't discussed, but ICE, if you, in Oxford, Alabama, if you find someone that is wanted or whatever, you notify ICE?
We do.
Okay.
We do. We notify them when we have them in custody, and of course, then they go through their hearing and they determine whether or not they will pick them up.
Well, you'll hold them until the ICE gets there.
That's correct.
Okay. That's
it's federal law.
Yeah.
Who am I to contradict and go against federal law?
Well, if you live in California, you do that.
Yeah, that's the left coast.
That's really sad because you put people at risk. I mean, if you got somebody, a bad guy, and you let him out, then you got to use your law enforcement to go catch him. And I'm wondering if I, as a mayor or whatever, have a law that releases these people, and an officer gets shot, wounded, or God forbid gets killed, I don't see why that person couldn't be held as liable.
I don't either, but you know, that you could do a whole show on nothing but the left coast.
Yeah.
But that's just the way they act.
Absolutely. Well, that's really, really bad. And we've We lost an officer down in Mobile here last week, and you and I put a lot in building the Alabama Law Enforcement Memorial, and we will be, May the 18th, is it? May the 18th, we will be unveiling the name of Justin Billa. I believe that's the way he's pronounced the name. Billa.
It is, Bill.
Billa. And he had a young wife and I think a couple of kids.
I know he had a small child.
Yeah. But with that memorial, we never expected or never hoped to ever put another name on it, but we already had to put one. And as it is, we're going to have to put another name on there. And we will unveil it on the 18th with honors. And anybody out there that's watching the show, put that date down, and we'll be glad to have you up there. But that's what Bill and I do, is make sure that is followed through and put on their property. Now let's talk about something that I've wanted you on here for, especially the situation that happened in Parkland, Florida, the school shooting, and everybody's gone with a knee jerk and whatever, and expect it's really a passionate situation, and people are some of them good intentions, and then there's the others out there that want to exploit it, you know. But what, on your view, other than, I know you know the guy had 39 opportunities to somebody do something right in that community. What is your take on what happened down there that versus what Oxford's got?
My take on everything that happened down there is you had a total breakdown of the system they had in place to take care of that. Like you said, there was 30 plus times that law enforcement had visited the residence of this young man, and 30 something times they didn't do anything apparently to help stop this or intervene. Then you had a breakdown the day of the shooting with the protocol that was supposed to be met by the current training that goes on across the United States on active shooters and that type training. You had a total breakdown. Yeah. From A to Z, there was a breakdown in the entire process that happened in Parkland.
The Oxford School has a bunch of resource officers. Do they look at the intermingling of the students where there might be bullying situation? Can they spot those things, or do they look at that?
Well, we try to look for it as best as we can.
Yeah, because I see that as, even now, I think yesterday they're talking about this cat, the Cruz guy. His brother said he was bullied and all this kind of thing, and he was part of the bullying process, and that can be traumatic. But when you're bullied, you take, normally people react then, but this guy planned over a period of time. He had that planned out, a lot of planning that, in my opinion, somebody should have seen. But in this case, you always come on here and talk about it. When you see something, say something.
It's imperative.
The people
it's imperative
down there
that if you know something, whether it be a high school student who overheard something in a hallway or whether they saw it on a social media site, if you see something, please call us and let us know. We take every one of those threats extremely serious. The minute we hear about one of those threats, we immediately send investigators and officers to the residence to interview the child and the parents and to find out what's going on.
They tell me we got to go to break. I want to pick up right where we left off and come back. We're going to talk more with the chief about schools and safety. Be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. We're talking with Chief Partridge for Oxford Police Department. And when we left, we were talking about see something, say something. And down in Florida, there was plenty of see somethings and say somethings. The DHR people went out there. They saw something. I don't know what they said, but I know they went out there. And this kid himself, stuff on social media, he was saying something himself that should have threw a flags up, in my opinion.
He was. And I believe once FDLE, which is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they're actually doing the investigation on the entire Parkland shooting. It was kind of taken out of the hands of the Broward County Sheriff's Office. I think that once that investigation is over with, we'll have a clear understanding of where those breakdowns took place and what needs to be fixed down there.
Because I know in the city of Oxford, there's a lot of people in social media, they let you know about it and stuff like that, but you just had an incident where somebody had wrote some language in a bathroom or something like that. You took that serious too.
Absolutely. You have to take it serious.
Yeah.
Who's to say what's going through that individual's mind? You know, we get blistered because we take it so seriously. from some people who think
Yeah.
that we shouldn't charge this individual with a certain crime. But my opinion is the only way you're going to stop it from happening is to make an example out of those who are actually doing it.
Yeah, I read in the paper yesterday over in the city of Jacksonville, somebody made a threat over there. And
Can you imagine, Ken, that if we didn't take that threat serious,
oh yeah,
can you imagine if we didn't go to that house and we didn't interview that child and those parents and we didn't go through the proper protocols that we've set to take care of this type of situation, and the next day that individual went to the school and actually did something at that school that hurt or injured or killed another student, can you imagine what the outcry would be that day?
well, not only that, but I know that how you would you'd take it. I mean,
Absolutely, I take it
would
personally.
Be, absolutely, it's not just a job to build partridge, but I know that you got we talked a little bit about, and one of the things is even the president's talking about it, armed teachers, you know, and you have a perspective on that I'd like you to share with the folks about pros and cons.
Well, I think that we should sit down and really think about the fact of arming teachers. Okay. Number one, teachers are there to teach. Okay. They're there because they love kids. Now, the first question I would have is if they're confronted by an armed child that they may have taught or teaching.
Armed child.
An armed child, are they going to be able to actually take that child's life in that situation? Or will they hesitate and that child take their life, and now they have two weapons with twice as much ammo? My personal opinion is you should leave the law enforcement side to law enforcement and school resource officers, and we should leave the teaching to the teachers.
See, I had a different perspective. You told me. You told me of a scenario. A coach is standing in the hallway, and he's got the shooter.
You have three things that you really need to think about when you arm teachers. Number one, is the training the teacher is going to receive adequate that they will be able to take the life of a student who is armed with a weapon? Number two, I hear people say, well, we will keep secret who has the weapons. You know as well as I do. In a school with 1,200 kids, they're going to know who's armed and who's not because it's going to get out.
Yep.
And if I'm a student wanting to do some harm to the school, and I know that I only have limited ammunition, but I know the coach or the assistant principal's armed, that's the first person I'm going to shoot, and I'm going to take their weapon because they're not going to be expecting me to walk into an office and just pop them. So now I'm armed twice as much. Now, those teachers who are armed, say for instance you have teachers that are armed in a school that law enforcement that works the road every day may not be familiar with those individuals and don't know who they are. But you have an active shooter situation and you have a teacher running down the hallway armed with a weapon and he encounters law enforcement in an active shooter situation, the odds of that teacher being shot are great because the way law enforcement is trained is one, go to the threat of the gunfire and to eliminate that gunfire, not talk to them, not beg them to put it down, but to shoot the individual and solve the situation where children are no longer being shot.
Coach Smith is standing there with his sweatshirt on, and he's got a weapon pointed at the shooter.
That's right.
An officer coming down the hallway don't see Coach Jones. He sees someone with a gun, man with a weapon.
That's correct.
And that's where you see the.
And in those types of situations, you can't hesitate.
Yeah.
You hesitate, you die, or other people die.
So the coach is going to die.
You know, we really need to slow down that process of thinking about arming teachers. We really need to look at that entire process and see if that's really where we want to go.
Is there any point that you would see that a teacher could be armed?
I do.
Okay.
But it would be very
good training and all that stuff combined.
Very limited basis of who would be and the type of training that they get would have to be extensive. Because like I said, teachers are there to teach our kids. They're not there to be police officers. They're not there to be security guards. It's hard enough for a police officer to take a child's life in that situation. I can only imagine what it would be for a history teacher or an English teacher who's taught that kid or teaching that kid to actually take their life.
Yeah, I've heard them say retired law enforcement or retired military, stuff like that. I don't know if that's the answer either. You know,
there's a lot of things that we could sit down around the table and talk about. The problem is we get in these situations like the Parkland shooting and everybody's there's a fever pitch of wanting to get something done because we all know it. We all want to fix the problem, but we really need to slow down and think about arming teachers.
We did that after Columbine and we didn't do anything. Sandy Hook, we didn't do anything.
That's right. That's right.
And, you know, that's the thing about it.
That's right.
It all sounds good.
It all boils down to the mental health issue.
Thank you.
We have to solve the mental health issue in order to solve these types of incidences from happening.
Let's take that time to do this, because the mental health, we hear our president, we hear all of our legislators, we hear law enforcement talk about mental health, mental health. And what people need to understand is you got somebody that's locked down here in one of our hospitals, mental health, and then they're released. And they was in there because of violence, and they're subject to be suicidal and homicidal. But they release them, they can walk right there and go buy a gun.
The laws that we should be talking about, Ken, is redoing the HIPAA Act, which is the Health Information Protection Act that the federal government passed many years ago. We need to rework that law. We need to integrate a new system of checking and being able to place people on a mental health list, that when you go to buy a weapon, not only are you looking for criminal activity that the individual may have committed or arrests that were made from violent acts, but you're also looking, are they on a mental health list?
Like NCIC thing?
Like NCIC. It would be integrated into that. So when you go to buy that firearm, you're not only checking for illegal activity, but you're also looking for mental health activity. Right now, there's nothing in that mental health area that we can look for.
Right.
So that's the void that's not even being talked about for some reason. I mean, we want to arm teachers. We want to put armed security guys that are not police officers in schools. We want to do all this stuff, but we're not actually looking at the actual problem, which is the mental health problem, and passing the laws that are necessary for us to be able to check individuals who have been incarcerated for mental health issues.
So the rights of the person's privacy under HIPAA override the rights of the law enforcement to check to see if they should be. So they go into the pawn shop, they buy the pistol. Nothing wrong. Pawn shop's done nothing wrong because they run a background check.
Well, there is a little place on that application when you fill it out that you can check, have you had mental health issues?
No,
well, of course, he's going to check no.
Well, Lord, no, I ain't had none.
Because he knows that they're not going to be able to check it in the computer to show that he was hospitalized 2 weeks ago for 3 days for mental health issues.
And that, just go back to the kid at Parkland, all the events where people went to his house, law enforcement, DHR, and all the others, if that was addressed as a situation where law enforcement could be given a heads up, should he go out to buy a weapon?
He should have been on the mental health list.
There you go.
And he should have never been able to purchase the weapon.
All right, let's talk about AR.
Okay.
AR, assault rifle.
Armalite Rifle 15 is the name of the gun.
Yeah.
AR does not stand for assault
I know,
rifle.
I just threw that in there because so many people are, we're gonna go to a break because they run out of time, but I want you to, we're not gonna do news that you can use because I got some more things to talk to you about. We're gonna go to a break, come back, we got more with Bill Partridge, be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. We're still talking with Bill Partridge, Oxford Police. And Bill, when we left, we were talking about the AR-15. Everybody's gone crazy over that. But assault weapons, this can be an assault weapon if somebody.
Anything you use to stick me, shoot me, or hit me with is an assault weapon.
Yeah, automobiles are assault weapons here lately. Knives. Look at the stabbings and things. I talked about the Oxford resource officers. How many of those you got in school?
We have 9 resource officers for 6 schools.
And at DeArmonville, you got the lanyard thing, or what's it called that?
We do have panic buttons
Panic
at one
buttons.
of the schools that we're testing to see how well they work.
That's help I've fallen. I can't get up that button.
It's similar to that, yes.
Yeah, that's an awesome deal because the thing that went wrong, and one of the things that went wrong in school is where was the shooter at the time of the shooting? Some thought he had already left and all this kind of thing. There was nothing to that. There's got to be a better accountability.
Well, like I said before, there was a total breakdown in everything that was supposed to take place that day did not.
And would you agree that videos monitoring would help out
Absolutely.
in that situation?
Absolutely.
Where somebody can see what's going on outside. There's let's see, I want to make sure I get all these things covered. The HIPAA law that we talked about was it would have to be voted on through the legislature to give law enforcement the opportunity.
Well, the federal government would have to change HIPAA because that's a federal law.
Yeah.
And then it would allow the states to pick up whatever thing they wanted to do after that as far as the law is concerned.
And basically what that would be saying is if you have at a mental risk, you're going, now here's where the rub comes. Right now in the VA, when I go through the door for my regular appointment, they ask me, do you have a weapon? I don't care how many times I go, yes, I do. What is it? It's 38. Where's it located? Blah, blah, blah. That's a everyday thing.
You're doing more than I do. I tell them it's none of their business.
No, if you do, then you're going to get it repoed. But that's another thing is people that have had take a Xanax by orders of a doctor. That's a mental health drug. And I think of people that's lost a loved one. Doctors will prescribe the mother that lost a son a Xanax or something like that, Valium to. They have taken a mental health drug. If they go to get, at what point do you say?
Those are the things that they need to sit around a table and work out.
Yeah. If somebody is taking, see at the VA says, because some of us take mental health drugs.
Why do we not have a federal task force on mental health right now in America?
Thank you.
To take care of that problem in Congress.
Thank you. That would be a big start and probably a finish if somebody would go through and follow through on it. Be the best money ever spent, but we could probably say that'd be the best lifesaver out there because to infringe on someone, to say you lost a child and the doctor says here, you in order to get through this, now you're down to, you got a record of having mind-altering drugs.
Yes.
And you don't want your weapons pulled because of that reason. There's got to be a fine line in there that when you say mental health, it's not a blanket that you can go out there and do that.
That's right.
But somebody that has been in a lockdown situation, a threat to themselves or a threat to others, in my opinion, they need to go through one more little hoop to get a weapon than somebody that's not out there. And that's going to take a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. Let's see what I've got. I don't even know how much time I got. Jerry Lyons, your officer, his baby out there.
Wesley, 3 years old.
3 years old, got
blood cancer.
If you folks out there see something on the website that you can help that young man, please do. We got a need for this young man. It's a very costly thing. We love him to death. We got to go. I'm sorry we're running out of time, but we'll see. Chief, will you come back?
Absolutely.
All right, I got him on TV, saying he will. We got to go. This week, this salute goes to all the law enforcement officers that put it on the line every day, and we'll see you next week. Salute.